the typewriter song. This is Jeff Rogers here with you on the Writer's Voice, coming to you on WIOX 91.3 FM. And today on the Writer's Voice, we're very pleased to have as a guest Mel Johnson Jr., star of stage and screen and regional theater. Good afternoon, Mel, and thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. It's my pleasure. Really, it is.
Mel sort of came on short notice, took time out from his busy schedule to drive up from New York. And we're going to get to Mel in just 1 minute. We have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. Looking forward to it.
From his role in Total Recall to his current project, Frederick Douglass, In the Shadow of Slavery, a one-man show.
Yep.
But first I have a few announcements. The Writers in the Mountains have a few classes coming up I'd like you to know about. Starting June 14th, Critics Corner with Barbara Apoyan. And that's going to be every Thursday starting June 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. and it's held at the Roxbury Run Village Clubhouse in Denver, New York. And I've taken classes with Barbara. She's just a great teacher. She knows how to critique your work without being condescending and very supportive. And you can bring a piece that you're working on, or you can bring a new piece to write, and you will get nothing but support from Barbara and everybody else in the class. And there are still spaces in this class, and you can register online at writersinthemountains.org, or you can call Gene Stone at 607-326-4802. And coming up in July, from July 10th through August 14th, is the very famous Journaling with Ev Ellsworth. Great class I've always taken. I will take again this year. And that is Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to noon at the Pine Hill Community Center, Main Street, Pine Hill, New York. And I have other announcements, but they can wait. Let's get back to my guest, Mel Johnson Jr. Mel, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into acting and what your route was to get to this point in your life?
Sure. Well, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in New York City. And I knew very early on, from the second grade, that I wanted to be an actor. I was a lucky kid. We were doing this production of The Rosy-Cheeked Ghost when I was in second grade. And I got out there and bam, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And when I got to junior high school, I was fortunate enough to have an English teacher that pointed me in the direction of the High School of Performing Arts. I never had auditioned for anything before, and ended up getting into that school and having that spectacular fame experience.
That's a great place for you to wind up.
Yeah, we are kids. We all thought we were the cat's meow. We had a great time. And then from there, I went to Hofstra University and got my degree in theater. And was fortunate enough to come right out and start doing children's theater, then regional theater, and then off-Broadway, Broadway, film, television. So
yeah, I see from your resume here, you've been on so many different things that some on television I remember. Just looking at this list here, The Practice,
yeah.
Deep Space Nine, New York Undercover.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
That's a long time in the makeup chair.
I was playing. Who did you play in Deep Space?
I was playing a Cardassian, one of these lizard people. 5 hours in the chair in the morning. I thought I was going to die.
Every day.
Every day that I was doing, I had a 4-part. The last 4 episodes of the series they had me on, and it was great, playing a bad guy. I don't know why they had me playing bad guys. I'm a great guy.
Right, you do play a few bad guys. Well, Benny, the mutant taxi driver in Total Recall, you were a pretty bad guy.
Well, I never, of course, thought of myself as a bad guy. Everybody comes up to me and says, "You were a bad guy, and that you had to get Arnold." I said, "Listen, no one ever thinks of himself as a bad guy. That was a lot of fun, though.
Well, you were likable in that, though, until you turned bad.
Yeah, that was the
That
key.
was the real Mel.
There we go, yeah. That was great fun. We shot that entire film in Mexico City, and 3 months down there, and the whole film shot for 6 months down there. So I had a great time with Arnold and
You shot
Sharon
that
Stone.
whole thing in Mexico City.
Yeah, they have a very futuristic subway system, so we used that, and so we took over the major studio down there, Churubusco Studios, and we're there, and just had a great ball.
How many months did that take to film?
The entire film took about 6 months. I was on it for 3 months, and it was great.
Right. Classic 1-800-GO-TO-MARS.
Yeah. Yeah, Arnold was a trip. We had a great time.
Yeah. And you were also, what was the David Lynch series you were on?
David Lynch, that was a series called On the Air, and it was a series that was way ahead of its time. You know how out there David Lynch can be.
He's out there.
And this was right after Twin Peaks, and it was a show about the advent of live television in the 50s. And, so that was really interesting. Back in the 50s, there were no black people on television. There was no black people behind the scenes, but he cast me as a sound guy. And it was great. But we had talking animals. We had directors that were speaking in languages that no one made up, that David made up, so no one could understand what was going on. It was the weirdest show. But we had a ball, but we only did about 9 episodes.
I don't remember it, but I read a little bit about it. I have to find, they're probably on YouTube.
Yeah, they're out there somewhere, yeah.
You're out there, Mel. You're out there floating around.
Floating around in the wireless universe.
What else was notable in your mind for your television and?
Well, when I get out and I start talking, and you especially speak to school kids, they always love the fact that I worked with Will Smith and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But that was fun. I did a wonderful mini-series called Liberty, and it was about letters home from Civil War soldiers.
Oh.
And so I had a chance to, we shot that, and it was great, and they had folks that were appearing on Broadway at the same time come out and do some of these monologues, these letters, and they filmed them, and they were really great.
And that was called Liberty?
Liberty, yeah.
It was on PBS?
Yes, it was great. It was a great TV series. So it was a lot of fun. But, when I think back, I don't even have my thing in front of me, but doing the Designing Women with those crazy ladies, that was great.
That must have been crazy.
Yeah, and so it's the TV stuff is great fun, because it's quick, you're in and out.
You're in and out, no long commitment.
But you see, I love stage, and I love the fact that you have to do it 7 days a week, 6 days a week.
In person. No retakes.
No retakes.
All live.
And all the mistakes that go along with that.
Yeah,
that fun of you never know what's going to happen.
And the audience doesn't even catch half the mistakes.
Of course not. And they love being a part of it because you feed off of their energy.
Yeah.
And it's, it's great fun.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what you've done on stage. Yeah, see, I got a crib sheet here.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, I can see what Mel has done on stage, Broadway and off-Broadway.
Well, my first Broadway thing was a wonderful show called On the 20th Century with Hal Prince and Madeline Kahn and Emma Jean Coca and John and Kevin Kline. It was a wonderful old thing. It was a musical version of a movie with Lionel Barrymore, and it was great fun. And then I did Eubie with Gregory and Maurice Hines.
Right.
And it's funny, I never thought about singing, dancing, performer, but, after 2 musicals like that, everybody thought that's what I do. And, and it was just survival for me. I was saying, I knew I could sing a little. And I go, well, what are black actors doing in New York? Singing and dancing.
There you go.
There you go.
Or maybe we can talk you into singing a little bit later.
A little bit later, sure.
Okay, good.
So it was great. I had a chance to do The Rink with Liza Minnelli and Gina Rivera. That was great.
The Rink?
Yeah. Candor and Ebb musical about destroying a roller rink and a mother and a daughter in Brooklyn. So it was,
Musical.
yeah, and I was a construction worker with Jason Alexander. I got a chance to meet him at the time. We remained good buddies and a whole lot of folks. And it's been pretty good. I got a chance to do Lion King on Broadway, so that was really great.
Right. And who did you play in that?
I played Mufasa. That's right.
How long does that run? That had been a good long run.
It's still playing.
Still playing.
I did a limited engagement. I came in and replaced the father. I was living in L.A. at the time, and they needed to, they just brought me in to play.
Right.
Yeah, so it was great. That's one of the interesting things about having theater and entertainment as your career. You have to move all over the place. Right. You have to go where the work is.
You get to see a lot of places and meet a lot of people, and you're leading a charmed life.
Oh, please, but no.
It's work, I know.
It's not only work, it's hard work when you can get it. Yeah. And it's, very interesting. The actor is always going to be unemployed. The show is always going to end. Right. The TV show is always going to end. So, sort of the rest of the country's catching up with us poor actors. I mean, we're always going to be out of a job. Right. I mean, no matter what, even if you run a series for, All My Children lasted 24 years, it came to an end.
Everything ends.
But with the actor, it happens much more regularly. Usually a regional theater, you mentioned regional theater, that's 8 weeks at the most.
And you're done. And you're out looking.
Yeah, and you're out looking again. As they say, you're at liberty. And you don't want to be at liberty.
No.
So we all understand the ins and outs of unemployment, insurance, how to get it and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful when I was living in Los Angeles. I had a chance to be involved with this wonderful organization called Imagination Workshop, which was a group of writers, actors, and directors that worked within the psychiatric community with kids at risk, the homeless veterans, regular homeless, doing exercises that improved self-esteem, communication skills. It was a great organization.
What kind of exercise? Do you mean acting?
Acting exercises. So, and working within the metaphor. So it wasn't like, if you're a drug addict, be a drug addict. No. But if you're Peter Pan and you have an issue that you want to deal with in communication, all of a sudden it's not you having to do it, but it's Peter Pan, and that's very freeing. It's very, it loosened up everybody. It was amazing, the effects. We had actual patients who were catatonic that would come out of it, and psychiatrists just didn't want to believe that these actors were able to get these results, but they became so strong that we were headquartered at UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute. Wow. So it was really great.
And Mel, tell me the name of this.
It was called Imagination Workshop. That's the name of the group.
Still happening?
Still happening in Los Angeles, yeah.
What a great concept.
Yeah, it was great. Great fun.
Theatrical therapy.
Yes.
I can see where that would really draw people out.
Yeah.
Just to get them to express something.
And it was freeing, and they didn't feel the weight of having to be themselves and being a character.
To be somebody else.
Yes.
Take the weight off.
It enabled them to work through a lot of issues.
Right.
So that was really great.
Well, most actors are pretty mental cases anyway, aren't they?
You got that right. Well, we have issues, but
everybody's got issues.
That's right. Very, very, very true.
Right. But that's a great thing to have done, Mel, and be part of. I applaud you.
Yeah, we have a good job. Hopefully one of these days we'll be able to transfer some of it to this coast, because it would work very well here also.
And I'm sure there's probably grant money available for such a program.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are organizations that are doing this kind of work. Right. But this specific organization was really great.
Imagination Workshop.
Imagination Workshop. Yeah.
We're going to be right back to Mel in 1 second.
Holding hands at midnight near the starry sky. Nice work if you can get it, and you can get it if you try. Strolling with that one boy, sighing sigh after sigh. Nice work if you can get it, and you can get it if you try. Just imagine someone waiting at the cottage door, when two hearts become one, who could ask for anything more? if you get it, won't you tell me how? Loving one who loves you and then taking that vow. It's nice work if you can get it, and if you get it, won't you tell me how?
Yes, that was nice work if you can get it. And I don't know the artist's name on that, but sort of talking about Mel's job of constantly looking for work.
That's right. And it's great if you can get it.
And we are here on WIOX Community Radio 91.3 FM and also online at WIOXradio.org. So bring us with you. And we're here in the studio with Mel Johnson Jr. We've been talking about his life and the acting life. And Mel told me he's got to rush back to New York. He's got another audition tomorrow morning.
I have another audition tomorrow morning, and I just actually there's a festival in New York called NYMF, which is New York Music Festival, and which they nurture new musicals that hopefully at one point may get to Broadway. Mm-hmm. And I just got cast in one of these new musicals called Stuck. And
how do you spell that?
Stuck. Stuck. And it's about 6 people stuck on the subway in New York City. In between cars. And it's in between stations.
In between stations in a car.
In a car. And I'm playing a homeless guy that spouts Shakespeare. So, I mean, I said, oh, nice. And it's a musical. So, I mean, so I haven't heard the music yet. We haven't started rehearsals.
Do you know who the other 5 people are in the car?
Yeah, there's pretty stereotypical. There's a sort of feisty young black girl, an undocumented illegal immigrant, beautiful Asian young girl who's got adopted parents, a middle-class white woman, and a young goth boy who's after the young Asian girl.
So you've got quite a cross-section. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen in this bubble, toil and trouble world of Stuck.
And where will Stuck be performed?
It'll be performed in the city in a theater it's called the 45th Street Theater in July, just for 6 performances. And there'll be close to 30 musicals that'll be being played all around the city during this 2-week period. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty exciting.
It's a festival.
It's a festival, yeah. Wow. And I'm going back to audition for Jekyll and Hyde tomorrow. They're doing a revival of that. So, it's always something.
A period piece or a modern Jekyll and Hyde?
The one that was on Broadway formerly. So they're just going to just remount it. Yeah. And they have a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah, there's also a lot of vampire stuff going on. And, there's a lot of... You had a little history in the horror movie producing. Didn't you produce?
Oh yes, I produced all black horror films in my other incarnation in Los Angeles.
the LA life.
The LA life. I did 4 films: Ragdoll, The Horrible Dr. Bones, and
The Horrible Dr. Bones. Jeez. Was it horrible?
It was horrible. 2 more, and I even appeared in one of these horror films. This was for a Full Moon Productions, and they made this movie Reanimator. It was probably my favorite thing I've ever seen of theirs. But I did a movie that we shot in Romania called Hideous, and it was hideous. But I got a chance to see Romania and travel.
Yeah, great. Hey.
Yeah. So that's when you're in Rome, meaning L.A., you just do what you got to do.
You do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're back in New York.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it's really good. Stage is my favorite genre of them all, but, I love doing it all. Jumping between one and the other.
Well, Mel, we're very happy to have you here. also get into, Mel and I talked on the way over here. There's just so many aspects and ways to go. Mel is currently involved in a one-man show entitled Frederick Douglass,
In the
In the
Shadows.
Shadow of Slavery. Now, this was written by a good friend of yours who you also did other work with.
Yeah, it was written by a good friend of mine named Tom Dugan, writer, director, actor. And it's always amazing how things come to be. Tom lives in California with his family. He's from Jersey. And when he first moved out to L.A., he decided to write a show about his own life called Oscar to Oscar. And we said, Oscar to Oscar?
Oscar to Oscar.
And it was about the adventures of when he first moved out there. He was doing a children's show, and when he came out from one of the performances, the Oscars were going on next door. So he snuck into the Oscars, pretended to be a stagehand. And then, years later, his wife and his agents, they paid for a ticket to go to the Oscars, but snuck into the party. And so the play is about his time between the first time he went to the Oscars and all in between the second time he went to the Oscars.
His life between the two
Yes,
Oscars.
yes. But then he decided to switch gears and do something a little more saleable, commercial, so to speak, and he wrote a piece about Robert E. Lee. And I directed the piece Oscar to Oscar, so he asked me to direct the Robert E. Lee piece. And it was great. And, it's always, and we premiered it in Richmond, Virginia. And it's always very interesting. People don't blink about the fact that a white person would be directing a black show. A white lady is directing Porgy and Bess right now.
Right.
It happens all the time. However, when I was directing Robert E. Lee, Shades of Grey, there was this uproar.
Are you black or something?
Really, and especially if you get down to Richmond, the capital of Confederacy. Yeah. So we were on television, we were on radio. They were talking about, and I was what is the story? But all publicity is good publicity.
Good. So all publicity is good publicity.
That's right. And so then he decided he was going to write a play about Frederick Douglass. And he's been acting in all these plays. I said, "You're writing a play about Frederick Douglass? What, are you planning on doing it in blackface?" He goes, "No, I'm writing it for you." I went, "Oh, my goodness." I said, I didn't know if I wanted to do a one-man show. But Tom is such a good writer, and he was going to direct this piece also. And we worked on it, and that's how Frederick Douglass in the Shadow of Slavery came.
That's how that came about.
Came to be, yeah. And he's also went one step further. He did some research, and he's now written another show for himself to act in about Simon Wiesenthal, the
Nazi hunter.
Yeah, so he's got that one going on also.
That's already in production?
Yeah, that just premiered this year.
One-man show?
One-man show. One-man show, he's really gotten that genre down really wonderfully. So it's it's great.
Well, that's good that you're hooked up with this gentleman.
Yeah, and we're good friends beside it.
Tom Dugan.
Yes, Tom Dugan.
And I guess the people down in Richmond didn't think a black man should be directing a play about Robert E. Lee. He's a god down there.
I know. I mean, we had folks that showed up in their dress. When you do a show like they show up in costume and all that stuff. But it went very well. They loved the show, and they love my direction.
Good.
Yeah.
That's no longer happening.
Oh yes, it's like my show. We get bookings around the country and different places, and sometimes they'll bring in. I think I did Frederick Douglass in Ohio, and now I'm going to bring in Robert E. Lee to follow that. And, if they see a good piece and they see that the writer director is doing another
connection.
Piece, they'll bring in the other piece. Yeah.
And anything happening in the near future on either one of those productions?
I'm not quite sure. We could check our websites, but I know that I'm scheduled to do one in September. Actually, Robert E. Lee is getting ready to be done in Los Angeles. Well, my brain freeze here.
That's all right.
It's coming up very soon in North Hollywood Theater. I don't have the theater right in front of me. But,
Well, I should have done my homework. And
well,
had all that.
I mean, this is very recent, so it,
Yeah.
it'll be.
So it's ongoing, both of these
Yeah,
plays.
absolutely, all of them.
And Simon Wiesenthal.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's it's 1:29.
Oh, great.
We are going to play a couple little announcements, and maybe we can talk Mel into talking about Frederick Douglass a little bit.
Great.
I'm going to just give you a couple of recorded announcements here.
Forget Randy, Jennifer, and Steven on American Idol. Forget Simon Cowell, L.A. Reid, and Britney Spears. Forget any of those national talent shows that end up in Hollywood. For local musical talent, commentary, and competition, join Carrie, Maria, and Louie on a special edition of The Voice this Wednesday evening, exclusively on WIOX. Hear Andy Central School Junior Jade Lideker and her music teacher Tamara Teich perform songs live on the WIOX soundstage. Songs specially selected to win your vote. It's an all-local, all-live special edition of The Voice, the Andy's Face Off, this Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, exclusively on WIOX. You can also watch the show on ruralfreetv.com and on MTC Channel 20. WIOX is supported by Caldwell Banker Timberland Properties with 3 neighborhood offices in Margaretville, Delhi, and Stamford. Caldwell Banker Timberland Properties covers the ground of Delaware County and the Catskills, reaching desirable potential buyers where they live and work. Visit them at timberlandproperties.com to learn how to put Caldwell Banker Timberland Properties real estate power to work for you. You can spot the top dog in real estate by the signs with the dog on top. WIOX is supported by the Greater Roxbury Learning Initiative Corporation, a nonprofit foundation dedicated to providing students of all ages learning experiences in science, technology, and engineering. Learn more about Garlic and its initiatives at 607-326-4754.
You are listening to the Writer's Voice here on WIOX. And right now we're going to listen to a little recording of Blind Willie Johnson entitled Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground. The studio here with Mel Johnson, and maybe we should talk a little bit about Frederick Douglass and his life. And I know, getting ready for this show, I read quite a bit, and I'd never read his narrative of my life.
Yeah.
Wow, it's
he had an incredible existence. You know, self-taught, and how he escaped, and then to become the statesman that he became by always hanging in there, never running away, always working within the system. There were times he was slapped down over and over again, but he came back. And that's the reason why we're talking about him today and not a lot of other people, because he hung in there and worked within the system. And that's sort of the focus of Frederick Douglass in The Shadow of Slavery.
His persistence and
His persistence.
working through the already established structure
And you know, being savvy enough to become political. He was very aware of the goings on of the system. He got duped a couple of times. I mean, I sort of align him with Colin Powell in that kind of power that he had,
and he was used by other people.
Used by other people, and in Frederick Douglass's case, it was President Hayes, and he was right there when in the presidential election of 1876, when all the segregation, the Jim Crow laws came into being. He was not aware of all of that. That was taking place back room and behind closed doors. They were making deals in order for that to happen. For Hayes to keep the White House, he made these deals with the Southern Democrats that they could keep segregation. So Frederick Douglass was really a part of all of that. Right at that point, they wanted him, the black community wanted him to resign. This is all part of our play, actually. It's really quite exciting.
So Rutherford B. Hayes, the president, he was already in power, in office
at the time,
and he utilized Frederick Douglass's popularity
to get him elected, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you have Jim Crow laws and segregation and everything in order to stay in the White House. I mean, in order to keep those.
He made the deals.
He made the deals, and it was rough. Yeah, I was just flipping here to look to see what was going on. If I had my little script here, but that's basically what happened.
I know that the Federal Army of Occupation was in most of the southern cities until 1877, when Hayes withdrew them, and then the states started doing whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And it remained that way until the Civil Rights Acts in with Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, sure, of course. I mean, it was Frederick Douglass fought for once we had the Emancipation Proclamation, he fought for the Civil Rights Act and all of those things, but they only went so far. I mean, and we won the right to vote. It was amazing what he was able to help get accomplished. So he was quite the character, and that's the reason why, there's a Frederick Douglass statue that was just dedicated in Central Park, and Frederick Douglass boulevards and high schools and all over the country.
All over the country, right?
Yeah, so it's great.
And I also read that he was on a vice presidential ticket. Tell us about that aspect.
Actually, I actually did another little play called Victoria and Frederick for President. Victoria Woodhull actually ran. She was the first woman to run for president, and she nominated Frederick Douglass as her vice president.
Without his knowledge.
Without his knowledge. They'd never met, actually. But it caused a big stir because Frederick Douglass was campaigning for Grant and was, part of his administration. So, but this sort of thing could go on back then, She was unfortunately, crushed.
Yeah, she was. She had quite a reputation.
She had
Victoria
quite a
Woodhull,
colorful. Yes.
Suffrage, women's rights.
Yeah, she was a compatriot of Susan B. Anthony. And so was Frederick Douglass. Frederick and Susan B. Anthony worked for years to get, the the same equal rights for women and blacks at the time, but they eventually pulled away, and Frederick Douglass had to, go out on his own, and so Susan B. Anthony was quite upset about that. But,
and women didn't get to vote till when? 1920?
Yeah, it was a while after
1920.
that. Yeah, and we had already gotten our vote, so it was quite something.
Yeah, you got the vote in part of the Reconstruction amendments of Grant's administration.
Sure.
Yeah, it's quite a history lesson for me. It's
well, and part of our play sets it up really nicely, and like sort of to segue into that. Our play sort of takes place at the time where he is the ambassador to Haiti, and he's writing his third version. His narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, written by himself, was his first book, and then he wrote two more, sort of
embellishing on the first.
And so the play sort of takes place where he's re-editing the third version, and My Life and Times, and so it gives us license to talk about his whole life. And what I'd like to do right now is sort of do a little bit of the opening of this piece. After we've sort of set it up, Frederick Douglass is looking at his book, and he's sort of going over one of the pieces. And one of the stories he begins to talk about is his story about his grandmother and leaving the plantation for the first time. And I'll go right into it right now. One warm summer morning on the eastern shores of Maryland near the Chesapeake Bay, when I was a happy little boy of about 6, my grandmother and I took a trip to the big house nearly 12 miles away. I'd never been so far from our happy little home. While walking through the dark, somber woods, my grandmother put her strong, protective hands on my shoulders, and as I clutched tightly to the folds of her dress, I said, "Grandmama." "Yes, child. It's a lucky thing I'm a big boy, else I'd be scared something come out these woods and eat me right up." "Yes, child." A few long miles later, my grandmother hoisted me on her back. I reached over and I said, "Grandmama." "Yes, child. It's a lucky thing I'm a strong boy, or else my legs be getting mighty tired." "Ah, yes, child." Somewhere around noon, wearing her red bandana turban on my head, sitting high on my grandmama's shoulders, I said, "Grandmama." "Yes, child. It's a lucky thing I got this sweet potato, else I'd be powerful hungry." "No, child. Fed, why do you think I get such good potato crops?" "Luck." "No, child. Luck ain't got nothing to do with it. I keeps the seedlings warm in the winter so the frost don't get at 'em. It's smart thinking and hard work that keeps you going in this life, baby boy, not luck. Whatever bad things happen to you, Fed, don't go cursing your bad luck, 'cause you the only one that makes your own luck in this world." Later that afternoon, we came to the end of our journey together. Here I found myself in the midst of a large group of young people of all sizes and colors, black, brown, copper-colored, nearly white. I'd never seen so many children before. Pulling her turban from my head, my grandmother knelt down and put her strong, dark hands on my cheeks and said, "You be a good boy now, and go play with these children. They're your brothers and sisters." Well, they were strangers to me, but they seemed nice enough, so I did as I was told. A short while later, one of the children ran up to me and said, Fed, Grandmama's gone." I could not believe it, so I ran round to the front of the house to look for myself, and lo, she was gone. "But why?" My older brother Perry answered. "Fed, don't you know, you's a slave." That night, as I sobbed myself to sleep in my new bed, the hard wooden floor of a kitchen closet, I cursed my luck.
All right.
That's the way this first started out.
That's how the show starts.
Yeah.
Mel, we gotta get you to do this up here in the mountains sometime.
It's a wonderful little piece. You had just got through playing your introduction for when we came back from commercial.
Yes.
It reminded us of me of this section we have in our show about slave songs, plantation songs. And I have a little section for that right now. Yeah, we're going to play, and I'll talk about that a little. The great misconception about plantation songs is that they were expressions of joy, that we were allowed any expression at all was joyful. However, although music was a huge part of our culture, singing in the fields was actually forced upon us. Overseers, suspicious of silence, used to yell out, "Make a noise! Make a noise!" So we began to sing as we worked. But it was a cry of a broken heart, not a joyful home. Those songs, they were the saddest sound in the world to me. Just the saddest sound. As a boy, I would close my eyes and press my palms over my ears and whisper, "Don't worry, Fred Bailey. You'll never be that sad. I promise nobody will ever make you that sad." So that was one of the sections from the show in which, as we can hear, your player had the same sort of strain going through those songs that were sung on the plantations.
You can feel the sorrow there.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about Frederick Douglass is that, you know, he was self-taught. And because he was self-taught, you know, we have a wonderful section in the play where he was sent to Baltimore to be the companion of a little boy named Tommy. And the mother was this relatively young white woman who had never owned a slave before. So she began to teach him how to read and write until her husband found out. And then she had to treat him like an animal. But he continued to learn in the streets.
He had a little start there, and
yes, and then he helped his white playmates in the streets with their homework, and that's how he continued to learn. And so he had this backbone. So he constantly, because of his attitude, would be changing hands from slaves. And when he was 16, he was sent to a slave breaker, and you know, and that's the first time he was whipped. And in this next little section on that I brought with you, because we had a slave song, I had an original song that was written in this style that helped express when he was standing on the sands of the Chesapeake Bay, looking out at the ships vanishing into the horizon. He wondered if he would ever find his own freedom. Where are you? Where are you? Where is my beautiful ship that will carry me to freedom's shore? Could I but swim, if I could fly, where would I be? Oh God, help me, Almost all of my days, I've been beaten like a beast, but I am a man. My voice, I'll use it for the first time. Now freedom's truth shall be told, and I'm gonna shout it until I'm heard. I found you. I found you. Oh, God saved me and delivered me, for I am my beautiful ship.
Ah, beautiful, Mel.
Ah, thank you.
Very uplifting.
Yeah, he was something. He really was.
Yeah.
And that was a wonderful piece that was written originally for the show, inspired by the narrative of him standing on the shore, looking at the ships and talking about it. And we thought that's a perfect place to put a song in.
Now, who wrote the song?
Mark, and Mark's going to kill me that his last name just went out of my head. But yeah, he's a wonderful composer. And he plays for a major rock band, and I don't have any of that information in my head. But he did a wonderful job with the song.
You will find out and let me know.
Yes.
Anybody wants to contact me or ask questions of Mel, and you can email me at pinehilljeff@gmail.com. That's pinehilljeff, GEOFF, @gmail.com. And contact me with any comments or questions about today's show or any show, or if you want to be on Writer's Voice here on WIOX Community Radio. Well, Mel, we're up to 152, and I really want to thank you for being on, and we've had a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. This was a real joy. I was glad that we were having dinner the other night and at our friend Philip Darmstadt's house, Philip and Ivy, and
we solved all the world's problems that night, didn't
as we always do.
Yes.
I'm sure some of the listeners are wondering how I ended up here.
Yeah.
I have a place up here. I live.
Yeah,
I have a
how
house.
did you end up here, Mel?
That's right. I have a house in Shandaken that was found by my dear friend and mentor and former minister Ralph Darmstadt,
Reverend D.
Reverend D. Has been my minister since I was 11 years old. So I grew up with the family, and when the church moved him up here, I followed.
You followed up,
and I've been up here all these years now.
I'm sure most of our listeners know of Reverend D. He's just the greatest guy. He's retired from having a parish, but he does weddings and funerals.
Yes, he does. And great, and is an inspiration to us all. And I mean, it's been so important in my life, and taught me how to drive, took me to get my license, that kind of thing.
Where was this, back in Brooklyn?
In Long Island City.
In Long Island City.
Van Alst Methodist Church was our little church back then.
Yeah.
And so his kids are now grown, and I'm still close with them all, and that's how we all came together.
Yeah, that's how I met Mel, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and common friends. And I'd love to do this again sometime, Mel. This was just a lot of fun.
Yes, it was, Jeff. It really was. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Great. We still have a few minutes
left. Oh, do we?
Good.
Here.
Yeah.
Good.
I have a little list of quotes from Frederick Douglass. One of them I really liked.
Okay.
This is a quote from Frederick Douglass. No man can put a chain around the ankle of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened about his own.
Now, isn't that something?
Isn't that? One more. A little learning, indeed, may be a dangerous thing, but the want of learning is a calamity to any people.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the fact that he was self-taught, wrote this book while he was still a slave,
Right.
was one of the reasons why he had to flee the country, because he went out on, the abolitionist circuit, and he spoke so well that people didn't believe he was a slave, so he wrote the book.
Right, to prove that he was
a slave.
And he proves it. The
That's
narrative is just, it's almost difficult to read.
I know. And then all the bounty hunters knew where he was, so he had to leave the country.
Right.
And then found out that Great Britain welcomed him with open arms. And that's how he got his freedom. Friends and supporters in Scotland sent back, as we say in our shows, $796, $700 and something, $710.96. I'm sorry, Tom.
To buy his freedom.
To buy his freedom. And it was incredible. He went back again after they tried to tie him together with John Brown, the abolitionist. But they kept bringing him back, and they loved the message, and they understood the struggle, and they had sympathetic souls, and so it was great.
And I believe that first narrative was published in Great Britain.
Oh yes, yeah. That's what they loved, and he went on the speaking circuit there, and it was great. So Ireland, Scotland,
right.
It was an incredible life that he had when he did all this.
An aspiring man.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing him to our listeners' attention, and we really appreciate you having been on, Mel.
Great. It was, again, my pleasure.
It's been Mel Johnson Jr. here on WIOX Community Radio. And Mel and I are headed home where my better half, Joanne, is preparing a lunch for us.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. All right, Mel, I'm going to sign off with my final song here. And let me just find that. I wanted to play a song for Joanne, but here's a good one right here. Begin to Begin.